Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment has been successful to a certain extent in protecting minority groups from racial, gender, disability, and religious discrimination.
For instance, school segregation, women in the workforce discrimination, students with disabilities, and Native Americans have taken several years to establish equality, and even so, discrimination is still seen today to the level it shouldn't be.
The Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment helped end education along with racial discrimination to a great extent. According to Concord Law, school education and racial discrimination was fought against with the Brown v. Board of Education case. As the Equal Protection Clause states, no form of government can deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of laws. With the Plessy v. Ferguson case in 1869, racial segregation was legal with the separate but equal clause. African Americans had to go to different schools from whites during this time period. Not only that, but in public facilities such as bathrooms, water fountains, restaurants, and more. Many believed that this was a barrier to equality and freedom. It was obvious that schools African Americans attended were less maintained than the public schools whites attended. This led to the Brown v. Board of Education case where Oliver Brown wanted school segregation to come to an end using the 14th Amendment. He stated that African Americans were not equal to whites in the schools, and this was unconstitutional because the 14th Amendment stated the government had to protect anyone from discrimination. The state government was part of the school board, which enhanced Brown's argument. The decision in 1954 came to a conclusion that school segregation deprived the students from the equal protection of the laws, and school segregation came to an end. Even though school segregation became illegal, many people still couldn't adjust to segregation ending. The Brown v. Board of Education case also sparked to end discrimination against students with disabilities. Students with disabilities were being discriminated at school by being treated differently from their peers. But the Mills v. Board of Education case prohibited discrimination against students with disabilities. They demanded to be treated the same from their peers. It also established the Disabilities Education Act of 1990.
Over the years, the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment has helped bring U.S. citizens to equality, all achieving equal treatment, equal protection, equal benefits, etc. Although the Equal Protection Clause was not always as successful, even after it was adopted, racial discrimination was still being seen in America, especially in the South. Southern African American citizens were mistreated by white people and sometimes even by officials. Not only were their rights being violated, but they were given unfair treatment and taken advantage of by many people with power. All citizens were to be treated with the same circumstances and conditions as any other individual and had the right to do as they wished because they had been granted their natural citizen rights, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yes, minorities were granted these rights, but they were also facing many barriers that prevented them from practicing them, so really there was no point. For example, when African Americans were given the right to vote, it was a huge breakthrough for them until they actually tried voting. They were treated poorly and judged by white officials running the voting booths, just because they were a different color than they were. At this time, poll taxes were required to be paid, but African American citizens barely even had a stable place to live, so they couldn't afford to pay any city taxes, meaning they were not able to vote for a candidate in favor of getting completely rid of discrimination. Today, equality has drastically improved, although minorities are still discriminated due to the actions of other same-race citizens. For example, police brutality and women discrimination in the workforce.
Historically, women have been fighting for equal rights and equal protection. Many sources believe that the Equal Protection Clause should not apply to women, while others believe that it should because they deserve to be treated and respected like any other citizen. Moreover, they believe that women are overpopulated and are now the majority gender participating in all kind of contexts, like in work, regions, school boards, etc. According to the National Center, women are still facing discrimination even though they're still fighting for years to be granted their rights. They are still seen as minorities and are unfairly treated, not only in public but in the workforce as well. Women today are still facing discrimination as employees, for example, like receiving lower wages than men do, even if they finish greater than and better work than men. In 1963, the beginning of the feminist movement, women were getting poorly paid and were also facing pregnancy discrimination in their jobs. To the extent where they even lost their jobs because of it. In certain occasions, women have also faced sexual harassment in workforce, persistent sex discrimination, as well as the discrimination they face in education and careers. Women not only lack of the opportunities as employees and in education, but also have to deal with inequality opportunities in athletics between men and women. Just to name a few areas where discriminatory laws were successful, women have equal control of material property. And even though there's still problems with work wages today, they are a great majority of women who are working in many more regions where only men were allowed to work in before.
In addition, the Equal Protection Clause has played a major role in preventing religious discrimination. Although such discrimination was seen when American inmates placed restrictions on the religions that Native Americans followed. During this time, many other non-Native inmates were allowed to practice their religious beliefs without having any restrictions against them, meaning that the Americans were discriminating the non-Native Americans, which was violating the Equal Protection Clause. The Equal Protection Clause also had complications when it came to interpreting the word protects. This word would often mislead officials that made it believe that it was okay to place restrictions on other practices as long as they were still allowed to practice what they wanted to. Although time has gone by, there are still many Native Americans that are being religiously discriminated. Today, many Native Americans that try to practice their religions are being threatened and has created chaos in our world. Long ago, our country would be at war due to the differences of religious beliefs. Now, there are attacks because of every person's differences, and people are discriminating against those who believe different than what we do. It has now gotten to a point that our current president is now participating in the discrimination against religions. Moreover, they are reducing the Bear Ear monuments. For many that don't know what the Bear Ear monument is, this is something very special to all Native Americans because it is their sacred land that is located in Utah. There. Ultimately, the Equal Protection Clause has successfully changed the way minorities are seen all around the whole world, and it has helped reduce women discrimination in the workforce, increase equality, and has even completely enhanced the rights and benefits not only disabled students but all handicapped citizens as well.
Over the years, this clause has slowly helped bring equality to the United States, and it would only keep on rising and successfully getting rid of discrimination. Hopefully to the point where people will no longer have the fear of getting looked down or judged differently because of their racial, gender, or disability.